Hey everyone, back doing another episode of my YouTube series. Took a little hiatus from March Madness and busy here at school with the semester winding down, being my final semester. But a lot has happened in the recent days, especially today over the last and into last night with regards to St. John's basketball and UCLA basketball. So this is going to be a short video. I'm just going to give my takes on it and feel free to comment, make a discussion. I've already started on Twitter with some friends. I'll start with the easier of the two, which is UCLA basketball. So for those that don't know, UCLA fired their head coach 6-7 games into the season this year, back in November, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They've had 100 days now to look at who they want to bring on full-time as their head coach. Their season ended, right? And the Elite Eight ended, all that stuff ended. First name that comes out is John Calipari. And it was reported that they were going to give him 6 years, $48 million. I don't think anyone actually believed that he would leave Kentucky, which is a much more lucrative job right now than UCLA. He stayed. He signed a lifetime deal. He's probably going to make $7, $8, $9, $10 million a year now for life until he decides to end his coaching career. All right, he's not going. Next up on the line was Jamie Dixon from TCU. It seemed like a foregone conclusion that he was going to go there. And when they were negotiating the contract, he opted to stay at TCU instead and said he preferred to be there. Okay, that's fine. So then they moved on to Rick Barnes at Tennessee. And after he, looked at it and kind of took it all in, he ultimately decided, I want to say he decided yesterday morning, that he was going to stay at Tennessee. Now, some of you might be saying, well, how is Tennessee a much better job than UCLA? To which I'm going to say, it is a better job because Tennessee was a 2 seed this year. Tennessee has been up and coming and doing very, very well in the SEC. UCLA is in the Pac-12, which is not a very good conference right now. Yes, UCLA does have a lot of history with John Wooden, in the mid to late 2000s, so last decade, they were really good when they had Russell Westbrook, Kevin Love was there. Yes, they did make the Sweet 16 1 year with Lonzo Ball, but that's an anomaly. UCLA is not, honestly, it's still a prestigious job, and it's probably one of the top jobs on the West Coast in competition with, Arizona or maybe, I would say Gonzaga, but Mark Few's been there for 20 years now, and he won't leave if anyone offers him more money. I mean, he's happy there. So it just tells me that UCLA is not that attractive of a job and that not many people actually want to go there anymore. UCLA is no better than most of the teams in the Big 12, with the exception of Kansas, or most teams in the SEC, except for basically what I'm saying is that UCLA is not one of those marquee programs anymore, and until they start winning and they get to Elite Eights constantly, get to some Final Fours, maybe even win a national title, they're not going to be held at the same standard that Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, North Carolina, Michigan State are held at. And unfortunately, that's sad, but it's reality. I mean, now they did get the head coach today. They hired the Cincinnati coach, Cronin. We'll see what happens. I mean, he did have quite a bit of success at Cincinnati. He got him to the tournament quite often in his tenure there. So we'll see what happens, but I don't know. I'm not optimistic that they'll be able to turn around in 2-3 years there. Now, moving on to St. John's. So for those of you that have been living under a rock, or maybe haven't, it was announced or reported yesterday that St. John's head coach Chris Mullin, who's the school's most famous alumni, best basketball player in school history, has a lot of records and is top 3 in a lot of stuff, decided that he was going to step down. Now, it wasn't made official yesterday. It was just made official about 10 minutes ago from me making this video. But it was ultimately announced that he was stepping down. AD Mike Craig, who's from Duke, announced it. And Mullin released a statement himself. And basically in Mullin's statement, he basically cited that after the tragic loss that he just recently suffered literally less than 6 weeks ago, and he kind of like started to think about what he really holds value to himself, and he ultimately decided he felt it was right to step away from coaching and take a back seat and just like lay off for a while, which I'm happy that he's the one that stepped down, because if he was fired, it would have ruined it probably would have ruined the relationship with the university, to which a lot of people in my grade and I'm friends with here at St. John say, well, who cares? You couldn't win. Yeah, you couldn't win, but you can't ruin a relationship with your most famous player and expect everything to be good. I can't recall who they just said on the Michael K show that I'm listening to here, but they fired a head coach a while ago. This is a while ago, back before I was born. Fired him. He was a school alum, and it took 20 years for the relationship to be fixed. 20 years. I mean, you can't afford that. You absolutely, positively cannot afford to ruin a relationship like that. And they're already on thin ice with Mark Jackson, who I'll get to in a bit. But, again, if he would have been the one to get fired with time still remaining on his contract, that would have sent a really bad look. And it would have been really bad. Who knows? Maybe he doesn't even come to stuff anymore. It's just, I can go on and repeat myself. It would have been a really bad look. Here's the part that I don't understand. On Saturday, in the afternoon, on my way back from Fordham, it was announced that Craig gave Mullin a vote of confidence. He gave him a thumbs up. He said, I like where you're taking the program. This is a good direction. So everyone that's saying, oh, Craig was coming in and he's going to shake things up, he's going to tear the walls down that Goff put in, you're not right at all. Because Craig gave Mullin a vote of approval and a vote of confidence to stay on as coach for the last year or two of his contract. I don't know how long he had left. I thought he had 1 year. Someone on the K show said he just had 2. So however long he had left, and I would have been fine if he had stayed for 1 more year. Okay, stay for 1 more year. See if you can improve to the point where you're not playing on the Wednesday night in the Big East tournament. Have a winning record. Maybe you get to the NIT. I don't think the NCAA would have been realistic for next season, but the NIT I think definitely would be. I would have been okay with it. And then you assess and evaluate from there. Now, I don't mind him stepping down. I understand it. He had a losing record. He had a losing record in the Big East this year. He probably should have had a winning record, but he didn't. So, I mean, it's difficult because, it's like Patrick Ewing down in Georgetown. You want to root for the guy and you hope he does well. You just don't want to have to make it come to the point where, you're in hot water and boosters and alumni want you gone, but you're the school's most famous alum and you don't want to, get fired. So, I mean, ultimately, at the same time, I can go on and on about how, I think he should or shouldn't have been fired and the relationship with the school. It looks like the relationship will stay somewhat good, though, because he doesn't appear to be upset about it, and there doesn't appear to be reported anything about it. If he had been, like I said, if he had been fired, it would have ruined the relationship, and I would not have been okay with that. But he's the one stepping down, and it appears that he is still on good ties with the school, and he's stepping away for personal reasons, to be closer to family and, not having to do all this. Maybe losing the top recruiter to Nebraska to go coach with Hoiberg, and the guy was like a Nebraska alum, like he was from out there. Maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe the fact that the JUCO transfer that was supposed to come in, Cam Mack, announced on, I want to say Sunday or Saturday, that he was going to ask for his release from his letter of intent because he didn't like where the coaching staff was at. Maybe that had something to do with it, and he didn't think the team was going to be good and the time was right. Ultimately, we may never know. As long as the relationship with the school is okay and it's still good between Mullin and him and with the higher-ups, I'm fine with it because he stepped away. he felt it was time. A lot of my friends were probably cheering, jumping up and down about it. And to which I'm going to now point to the fact that, yeah, you're going to jump up and down, but you may not want to entirely, because now you have to find out who's going to replace him. I'm going to go through the 4 names that have been mentioned the most, okay, from what I think is least likely to most likely. Okay? Least likely is Mark Jackson. Now, he is probably the school's second best player of all time and second most notable alumni, in my opinion. He did coach in the NBA for a long time. He's proven he was a winner. He got the Warriors to the second round before they were the Warriors, in a sense. If he had stayed there and wasn't fired, who knows? Maybe he's the one that's getting all the credit for all the success and not Steve Kerr. The world may never know. But what's unproven is if he can coach at the college level and be an elite recruiter, and if he can get enough money to leave the broadcast booth with ESPN with Jeff Van Gundy and all the others. And plus, the school doesn't want him to come in for 4 or 5 years, kind of have the same success as Mullin, and then be forced into the same situation, because then your 2 best players, and what are you going to do? So it doesn't look like he would come in. I certainly would like to see him come in and do it, but we'll ultimately see what happens. Next up on the list was the head coach from Iona. I don't know his last name. I'm sorry, I don't. A lot of people said bring him in. He went to St. John's here. He did, but he transferred and he left and he finished school at Hofstra. So it's not like he's a true alumni. It's like he's a half alumni, because he didn't stay here all 4 years. And people are saying, well, he's like second choice or whatever. But he's 60 years old. Like, how much longer is he really going to do it, You don't find the guys like Coach K and Roy Williams and the Calipari's and Bill Selfs and the Jay Wrights. You don't find them very often, wanting to coach into their 60s and whatnot, because who knows? He may only stick around for 2 years, 3 years, and then he might leave. So I would stay away from him, personally, in my opinion. So next up is the name that is obviously very, very controversial, and that is Rick Pitino. Rick Pitino is a good coach. He's very, very good. He unofficially won a national championship because it's vacated. And he has been coaching for a long, long time at the college level, and he's a proven winner. He's a proven college coach. 2 issues I have with him. One, St. John's is a Catholic school, and everything that Pitino has been involved in, I don't think matches up with St. John's morals and traditions. And if they were to hire him, that's going against all their morals and traditions. And for all I know, it might upset, the Big East, which you're saying, well, who cares about the Big East? We're worried about us. It's true, but the Big East prides itself on, like, a lot of Catholic schools, and it doesn't really match up with them. And they could say, when all these TV contracts come up, hey, St. John's, you're out. We appreciate you from being here from the beginning, but, either Pitino goes or you go. I'm not saying it would come to that, but it's an oddball out. And secondly, the reason why I don't want Pitino here is he's still potentially facing trouble from the NCAA for the FBI scandal. Like, that's what people forget. The prostitute scandal, or the, hiring of women to attract top recruits there, whatever you want to call it, okay? He didn't get punished for that. His assistant got punished, and the school got punished because they had to vacate all the wins for a year. They lost their national championship. So 2013, there is no national champion now in college basketball because it was vacated. And all that was settled, okay? Louisville's still actually paying for it because I think they're still on probation for like another 2 years. And they have some other stuff with some fines and mentoring and whatnot. But then, right after that got announced, he was involved in the FBI scandal. And that was the point then. Now, I'm not going to go on to the FBI scandal. I'll rattle on for 30 minutes about that. But they essentially don't have any punishment yet from the FBI scandal. And they're probably one of the most notable teams at the head of that scandal. Auburn is pretty up there with it as well. Arizona, I believe Oklahoma State is involved in it as well. But Louisville's at like the top of it. they're still going to get punished, whether it's by the NCAA, the FBI announces something, which I don't know what the FBI could do actually, but the NCAA will do something where they say, you're on probation longer, this coach has a show cause penalty, anything like that. If Pitino is in any way linked to it, he'll likely get in trouble and suspended by the NCAA. And do you really want, in December or January to get an alert on your phone saying that St. John's head coach Rick Pitino has been suspended 1 year for his involvement in the FBI scandal? Like, do you really want that? Then you're losing him for a year. It just would not make sense to me. And I don't agree with what he has done. Okay, obviously, he has been proven not guilty with the prostitute scandal, and it sounded like he had nothing. He's saying he had nothing to do with the FBI scandal. But, I mean, come on. There can't be this much stuff happening with you not knowing some of it. It's very easy to lie and get out of it. So I'm not buying what he's saying. Lastly, which has been the most talked about candidate, is Bobby Hurley. Bobby Hurley has no direct ties to St. John's, other than he's a Duke alum and the current AD is a Duke alum, and the fact that the Hurleys are basketball royalty from New Jersey. They all grew up, played there. Their dad was the coach at St. Anthony's for like 30-something, 40 years. Dan Hurley was the coach at Rhode Island, and now he's coaching UConn. Bobby Hurley was coaching, I can't quite remember where Bobby Hurley coached before Arizona State, but now he's at Arizona State, and he likes it out there. And his family does like it out there because it's in Arizona. Don't have to worry about snow or anything like that. So while Hurley might be an ideal candidate, here's the thing you got to remember too. Is Arizona State just going to offer him more money to stay? Say he's making $4 million out there a year. St. John's comes along and says, here, we'll give you $5 million, Hurley. They can easily Arizona State can easily just offer Hurley more money, because here's what you forget. They get like $40, $50, $60 million from their TV contract from the Pac-12 through their TV contracts with Fox, ESPN, and everything else, and the money the Pac-12 network brings in. The school's getting all that money. They can easily just give him an extra $2 million a year, $3 million a year to keep him out there. If that were the case, then St. John's could really be in trouble, because then it's, okay, do we hire a 60-year-old coach? Do we hire a guy who's likely going to get us in more trouble, or he's going to face some sort of punishment? Do we bring in another notable alumni and see if he can do better than a previous alumni did? I mean, it's very complicated. Ultimately, I think Hurley is going to end up here somehow, because it seems that's the talk of the city and talk amongst my friends of who would be the ideal candidate. All I'm going to say is, don't be surprised if Hurley does not come here and he stays at Arizona State. And if you don't believe me that, a coach wouldn't want to come to St. John's, that's the first choice, scroll back to 17 minutes ago in my video when I'm talking about UCLA and listen to all the names that turned down UCLA, who's like the big power out west. So that's my take on some stuff. Hopefully I'll be able to do some more videos soon, talking about some more stuff. NFL draft is coming up. Baseball's underway. Basketball playoffs are happening. UFC looks to be having some good fights coming up, although TJ Dillashaw did just get suspended for 2 years, so he won't be back until 2021. That's sad. Leaves the bantamweight division in UFC a little thin on big names right now, but other than that, thanks for listening. Go St. John's basketball, and let's see who we end up getting. And shout out and thank you for Chris Mullin for a thrilling and entertaining 4 years. Well, not really the first year, but the last 3. Pretty cool. I get to say I went to school when Chris Mullin was here.